Well, the sixth stop of the year for the Bassmaster Elite Series 2022 is in the books, and Ronnie Moore, a very much anticipated trip to Pickwick Lake, and not just Pickwick Lake, but in the summertime, and our expectations are for ledge fishing. Didn't turn out exactly that way for our top performers, but some very interesting variations and some very interesting choices that we're going to explore on our Unlock the Lake today.
Yeah, Tommy, I love every single stop we have on the Bassmaster Elite Series, but I love Pickwick just a little bit more because of my local history there of just when you get to Pickwick in the summertime, magic can happen, and you mentioned it. So why don't we get into the Humminbird Unlock the Lake, and we'll start with a guy who maybe ran away from Pickwick a little bit because it suited his style to get away from everyone.
Yeah, John Cox making a pretty lengthy little trip down the Yellow Creek tributary, running south from Pickwick Lake, not too far from the dam, to Bay Springs. At Bay Springs, of course, everywhere it's visited. It's not unusual to have a visitation from competitive anglers there, but not a place anyone thought you could win this tournament.
Yeah, 100%. I think that a lot of these guys were like, I come to the Tennessee River in the summertime, I better fish offshore. But for a guy like John Cox, who went to Bay Springs, he made that 30 to 40-minute run into the lake and then down to his spots, which Bay Springs isn't a big place, but he had a lot of room to himself to work. And when you're fishing shallow, you need every single bite in the summer you could possibly get. And John really focused on brim beds. He used what he loves to use, a wacky-rigged Berkeley General, and he did it around those brim beds to perfection. And that's why every single day we saw him catch 1 or 2 4-pounders, and it was so crucial for him.
And what would John Cox say if anyone said, why don't you just put some electronics on your boat and get out there and ledge fish, get out there super deep?
He would say, come take a look at my bank account, guys, because I've done a huge portion of my living fishing on the bank. That's his style, Tommy. That's where he's comfortable. And honestly, for John Cox, his tournament was in doubt about 2 hours left of day 2. He had a small weight in his live well. He didn't have a limit quite yet, but 2 big catches at the end of day 2 not only got him inside the cut line, which he had fallen down below, it got him back in the Angler of the Year race, weighing 22 pounds on day 2, moving up to 5th place. It put him neck and neck with Polinick. He was insured at that point to not lose points to an offshore superior angler like Brandon Polinick.
Great job by John Cox. Let's go down through the rest of our Unlock the Lake. Of course, our winner was Brandon Lester. Everyone knows him, a very popular win, very amazing performance to get it all done in such a flawless way. But he started the day, the final day, 3.5 pounds ahead of a couple of rookies. Now, Brandon's 34 years old. These 2 guys were a decade younger than him.
Yeah,
they still are.
Yeah, Cody Huff and Jacob Foutz were on his tail trying to complete a comeback because Brandon Lester had been so steady every single day, 20 pounds every day up to the final day, and they knew they needed a big bag. And so for Jacob Foutz, I mean, he did something a little bit different. He was able to get away from a lot of anglers, yet still fish offshore. He utilized that Strike King 10XD. He utilized a big old monster worm and also a spoon, courtesy of his roommate, Cody Huff. So he used a lot of different baits, but he did it in a different area. He was living between that Bear Creek and that bird cage, or that Bear Creek and the State Line Island area of the lake. He wasn't in that Waterloo region where a lot of the ledges were getting pressured. He was kind of in the mouth of Bear Creek, where it goes from main river ledges into the Bear Creek channel ledges. And so he was bouncing around to places. And one thing's for sure, when he got him fired up, he went on a flurry. We got to see him catch his limit in 7 minutes on day 3.
Now let's talk about the other rookie who was actually tucked up right under our leader to start the day, 3.5 pounds back. Cody Huff, another super decorated college career that prepared him very well for the Tennessee River and Pickwick Lake.
Yeah, for Jacob Foutz and Cody Huff, going to school away from their home. Jacob Foutz from Ohio, Cody Huff from Missouri. They both went to universities and colleges in Tennessee on the Tennessee River. A lot of knowledge in those 4 years of school. They got some book knowledge, I'll say, in the classroom. They got a lot of lake knowledge for the lakes they fish. So Kentucky Lake has helped Cody Huff out a bunch. Fished Pickwick quite a bit each summer and used that to his advantage. He was able to fish around some guys. We saw him outfish some of the best Tennessee River ledge guys side by side. He shared some spots with Matt Robertson, shared some spots with Joseph Webster. Some of these guys are really good offshore, and he was able to rise above. And he did it a couple different ways. He was throwing that Missile Baits magic worm on a drop shot and a Nico rig a little bit, but then he also threw that Dixie spoon, the 3 treble hook spoon that we saw that he was able to get on a flurry earlier in the week with. That final day, though, Tommy, he pulled out an Ozark trick, throwing that small swim bait, something you do not see on the Tennessee River. And man, in a 10-minute span, he called out everything he had, and he got up to 20 pounds once again.
Huge expectations for Cody Huff as he came out to the Bassmaster Elite Series. Been a little bit delayed getting there, but I think he got there in fine style this time around. Certainly has the pedigree and, of course, the reputation to continue straight upward.
I had to send him a text this week at Pickwick and say, welcome to the Elite Series, because you're not really a part of the Elite Series, in my opinion. You know, you don't feel like you're a part of it as a star in the sport until you make one of those final days. Making a top 10, it goes a long way in your points race, because you got to think about it. 10 anglers get to fish that final day, and over a span of 9 events, 90 spots, there's a lot of them are used up by the same angler. So if you can get into that top 10, you're doing something a lot of the field hasn't done this year. Cody Huff made up a bunch of points, going from the 60s and 70s in Angler of the Year, just outside of our classic cut. And he's going to be one to watch as we do go up north, because he is a wizard with his electronics.
Well, now it's time to get to Brandon Lester. A very popular win. Everyone kind of pulling for Brandon to do it. Such a nice guy, such a hard worker. He has paid his dues for 9 years on the Elite Series and 9 years in the Bassmaster. I mean, he just broke through with his first win with the Bassmasters. Kissimmee at the St. Croix Open, Southern Division Open up there, and maybe that's what prepared him to do what he's always been gunning for his whole career.
We kind of projected this the last few years. We had put him, it's a pseudo list. People probably think we have names written on a sheet of paper who have not won an Elite Series event, but that should have won one by now. He's on that pseudo list that's floating in air. But really, winning that Open earlier this year, I kind of said to Kyle Jesse on a podcast, I said, man, this could just light him on fire. Not only for Angler of the Year race, because he's always so steady, but also for getting a victory. For Brandon Lester to do it at Pickwick his way as well was very cool. And I wanted to talk about the way he did it, because that Coger Island region, you know, from the Natchez Trace Bridge to the tip of 7 Mile Island, that 10 or 15 mile stretch of river, it's very, very good in the spring, and it is good in the summer, but you have to manage it well, and you have to have it to yourself. For Brandon Lester to take a shallow area relatively 5 feet to 10 feet deep, a couple marks in practice that he kind of went on a whim to. Mark Zona mentioned it, a late boat draw on day one. He got to see where everyone else was lined down the Tennessee River, pulled up to his area by himself, catches a good bag early on day one, and gets to leave it before anyone sees him. I think that helped him a lot, but even he thought, 2 days, maybe out of this. 3, I would love it. We were wondering, if he catches that first fish on day 4, how it was going to go. He removed all doubt, catching the first limit of the final day and having a huge advantage. I mean, I think that put his mind at peace, and you always want to see a guy slam the door on the final day of his first win, catching a big one, and he did that, catching a 513 on a bait he hadn't caught any bass on camera all week, switched it up, adjusted on a different school of fish, and boom, sealed the deal, slammed the door on his first win.
Absolutely, and it was his time, and a lot of things have to come together to win on the Bassmaster Elite Series. This little spot, as big as 2 of his boats, he said it was, covered with bait. This little hard spot out there, very, very small, and it replenished like nobody's business. And I think that's what astonished a lot of our old pros at Pickwick out there.
Yeah, when you go to Pickwick in the summer, Tommy, you think about the river channel. You want to get on the river channel, those ledges where it's going to congregate the most possible fish. When you go to the Tennessee River, you want to find those 100 fish schools. That is somewhat a thing of the past at Pickwick. You're looking for those places that have 10 to 15 fish that are maybe off the beaten path. No one's got their radar on them, and you can manage them. And for his region, that Shell Mound, that Coger Island region, there's a lot of little creek channels, a little subtle turns in the river that create hard spots that fish will get to. You know, they were just on the bank a month ago. They were just up shallow a month ago. Maybe not all of them have gotten out to the main river channel. That's a great stopping point. And boy, these 4 days, I don't know if someone's going to catch a fish off of them the next couple weeks, but he managed to do so all 4 days.
And those secondary spots that allowed him to keep culling up and keep enhancing his weights every day. Some of them going back way deep in his history on Pickwick Lake. And one of them on the final day really paid off with a giant that was a clincher. We got to watch this.
Yes! Woo! Yeah! Brandon. Woo! Gosh, yes!
Boom, baby.
Boom!
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure that's ball game, boys and girls. Boom! Golly! Thank you, Lord. What a giant.
What's also cool, Mike Sukon mentioned this during Bassmaster Live, Brandon Lester now a Bass millionaire in just 9 years on the Bassmaster Elite Series and only 2 victories, and they all came this year. He got to $1 million quite a hurry, Tommy, and we're excited to see the success Brandon Lester has had. A little bit more change in his pocket as he heads to the beach.
His performance and all the rest at the top of the leaderboard making up our Humminbird Unlock the Lake.